So thank you and welcome all to, I think, one of the last talks today. I'm happy that so many people showed up. I'm guessing it's because the MCP thing is a really big hype today. And yeah, I will present to you today from idea to integration, an intro to the model context protocol. It will be really basic and yeah, I hope you enjoy it. So a few sentences about me. I'm a cloud platform engineer. I have nothing to do with Python or data science, but I'm here today to present a topic because I'm really interested in integrating the LLM technologies into into the should I plug in a different port? No. Okay, I will continue. So I love integrating AI in existing systems and combining it with infrastructure. And yeah, we will look at this today. And I'm also here from Innovex. We are IT project center. We are here with 20 attendees and we have 6 talks. So please come check out our other talks. Yes. So the model context protocol was introduced by Anthropic in late November. Anthropics are the makers of the Claude AI, and they released the model context protocol with their latest AI model, Claude 3.7. And when it was first released, for me, I didn't heard anything about the protocol. For me, when I first heard about the MCP was when Cursor, the IDE fork from VS Code, integrated the model context protocol. And then I think that this was in late February this year. It really blew up and it was all over Twitter, LinkedIn, and yeah, everybody had to say something about this. Then also shortly after, OpenAI announced that they will also support the standard and will add support across all of their different products, including in their agent SDKs and also their desktop app. So what is the model context protocol? The MCP allows you to MCP is an open standard that allows you to connect LLMs with tools, data, and services. This means, for example, if you have a database, if you have a customer database, and you want to integrate this database into your LLM flow, you can write an MCP server that queries the database and then further processes the data. So you can write the server and to query data, to take actions, not only to query data, but also like execute all kinds of actions. So it allows you to build complex workflows on top of LLMs. It allows you to easily use pre-built integrations. For example, already there are lots of MCP servers from different cloud providers or software as a service systems. And the protocol gives you best practices for securing your data within your infrastructure. So I thought to best show the MCP protocol in action, I will start with a short demo. And what I did is I downloaded the schedule from the talk, put it into a SQLite database, and then I wrote a small little MCP server that allows the AI to query the database, which is, I think, a really cool little example. We can now ask Claude here. So I will ask it what talks are about MCP. And then I hope the live demo works. Yes, it says, hey, I want to execute this tool to get the database schema. Then I want to execute another tool to run the query. And then it says, hey, I found 3 talks about the MCP protocol. One is from me, and I think the other one is tomorrow by Martin Seeler. So come check it out. I think it is a bit more advanced. And also the talk about scraping a Lego for fun also uses the MCP protocol. So yeah, this is a small little demo. So and then now let's get into how something like this works. If the screen comes back. Yes, thank you. So the model context protocol architecture consists out of 3 components. We have the MCP client, which is what I just used to query the conference database, for example, Claude, or we have Cursor, or you can build your own client. Then we have the protocol, and then lastly, the core component, the MCP server. So let's look at the different built and transport types. The current protocol supports the standard input-output for communication, so just console. It also supports HTTP with server-sent events, which uses server-sent events for server-to-client messages and HTTP post for client-to-server messages. The latter protocol with the server-sent events is not ideal, and it was changed, but I will come back to it later. So currently, mostly used is the standard input-output, where you install a small little library, or I think most of the time currently it is an npx package, which then runs the MCP server. So these are built-in transport types. Then we have the MCP server. Shortly after Claude announces the protocol, there are already, I think, so many different frameworks. As I said before, I'm not in the Python ecosystem, but I looked at the fast MCP server from Python and it looked great. So I decided to use it. So this is the server component. Yeah, I use the fast MCP because it supported both transport types. Yes. So okay. So then one component from in the MCP architecture are the MCP resources. MCP resources allow you to expose data and contents from your servers to your LLMs, and when it is a resource, it should be asynchronous resources, for example, logs, or I think most commonly a database schema. And these resources can the LLM request instantly without doing any compute. It just can say to the server, hey, I want the data, and the server returns it. The most important component in the MCP architecture are the MCP tools. This is where the magic happens, where you perform action, computation, where you query the database, call the API. Yeah, it enables you to perform the action. For example, I have here a small little tool that shows you how to add 2 numbers, which is really basic, but yeah. And below there, I have a small little section from the code I use to query the SQLite database, where you can pass the query and it returns the rows. You can also specify a type schema if you know that you have a JSON, then you can say it, and the MCP server relies that to the model, so that the model knows what the format needs to look. So now the MCP client. The MCP client connects all those components together. It coordinates the communications between the user, LLMs, and MCP server. And the architecture is really simple. What the MCP client does, it gets all the different tools you have, and then it sends the tools as a preamble at the beginning of the user request. So it includes all the different tool descriptions so that the LLM knows what tools are there and how to call them. So if you have a database and it needs to write SQLite, there is a comment that says, hey, you need to write SQLite. When the LLM then wants to call one of those tools, it has a tool use message, which says to the client, hey, I want to use this tool. Then the tool gets executed, and the MCP server executes the tool, creates the database, calls the API, and then the return tool result gets returned to the client, and the client gives the message back to the LLMs, and that happens until the request is over. So, yeah, now I want to show how this looks from the MCP, from the fast MCP, which I use for the conference. You can see here. This is just the there's just the SQLite database. We have the resources, the resource for the schema, and then down there we have the tool to query the database. And this then gets integrated. For me, the MCP server gets called via the transport, via the console transport protocol. So sorry, it is a bit small, but if I go here to edit config, then yeah, it's really small, but it says here, hey, call the Python script with this command. Yes. So now I want to get into the latest specification that got released in late March, which I think is one of the most important changes, and which will make the MCP protocol even better as it is today. And the latest specification added two big things. First, it added a comprehensive authorization framework based on OAuth 2.1, and it replaced the previous HTTP and server-sent event transport with a more flexible, streamable HTTP transport, which is great. I will first say a few sentences about the authorization framework. There are multiple authorization variants now. This just shows the authorization code grant type, which just allows the MCP server to be an authorization server, which means if you call an MCP server, the MCP server can trigger an open browser event, then you can log in, and then you have permission to call the MCP server, but also you can program that the user, maybe the user only has permission for certain resources to be queried with the MCP server. For example, if you have a customer database and you want certain people from your company only to use the MCP tool to query the customer database. So now we come to the streamable HTTP. The current implementation of the server-sent events required maintaining a long-lived connections, and it lacked connection resumption capabilities, which made it really difficult to host those server-sent events on current cloud infrastructure. Mainly because the server-sent events need to keep a connection even if you don't use the MCP tool. Also from my use case, I had lots of issue when trying to use the server-sent events. The servers crashed for me, no matter what different framework I used to build the MCP server. So the Streamable HTTP changes this. It supports a stateless server operations through client-provided session IDs, which make it great to host your MCP server on things like AWS Lambda or even Cloudflare workers. And it enables an on-demand server-send upgrade, server-send event upgrades when you need when you need streaming and you want to be able that the server sends notification to the client when computation is finished. So, and I think, yeah, in the practice, it then looks like this. You have this is a different framework because the support is not there. In the practice, it then looks like this. You have a port, and you host the server, and then the standard says, hey, you have a /MCP endpoint, and then you can connect your client against this /MCP endpoint, and you are connected. You don't need to install some kind of binary or Python or JavaScript package to run your server. So, like I said before, I think those changes will be really great because currently the MCP setup most of the time looks like this. You install the MCP client, you install the MCP server. For example, it's now here this Cloudflare MCP. Then you have to add your API key, so Cloudflare knows that you are who you are, and then you can execute your action against the MCP server. But with the new protocol, you can easily connect against the /MCP endpoint of your for example, Cloudflare or maybe your company. And you can use the authorization framework to get authenticated. And this also allows you to then build something like this for your company where you can say, hey, I have one central MCP server that I can use if I want to query the database, get data from the CMS, or get new SEO information. Yes, so I'm really hoping that the new standard gets out there quickly, because currently it is sadly so that the frameworks are already here. The MCP frameworks slowly get here from the server side, but on the client side, if you want to use Cloud Desktop or Cursor, they are all currently not supporting the new protocol. And I think you have to use your own, you have to write your own client at the moment. Yes. Because I'm from the infrastructure, I also want to present this project as my final slide, which is Open Control. Open Control is from the people from SST, which is an infra provider, something similar like Terraform. And what they normally do is they provision your infrastructure in the cloud, and they do lots with Lambda and function as a service. And what they now do is they just say, hey, we not only provision your infrastructure, but we also deploy a MCP into your infrastructure. An MCP client that you can connect with your AI, but that also has a web interface. And you then can call your database, which is already provisioned in the frame in your infrastructure, and is already inside your infrastructure. You then can call from your MCP without having to configure any connections or virtual private clouds. You can just connect to it, which is awesome because it is just so good integrated, and I'm thinking that something like this will be the default in the future. I also use the Open Control now to to host the application which I showed before. So I can now go, it is black on black, which is not great, but I can now go on here and can also ask here, so I'm asking it who has more than 2 talks, and then it says, hey, I will check the schema, and like before, but this time it is in the infrastructure, and it is accessible via yeah, okay. Nobody has more than 2 talks, but 9 speakers have exactly 2 talks. Okay. Yes. Yes. So this was it for me. You can play around with the PyCon. With the PyCon schedule, it is live. Scan the QR code or use the password, and the code is also live on GitHub if you want to play around. And yeah, I encourage you to, if you have time, write a quick MCP server. It makes a lot of fun, and if you have data somewhere living, it is so fast to integrate it, and yeah. Thank you.
Okay, there are some questions in the Slido. So first question, what is the benefit of MCP over standard tool calls or RAG to access relevant context?
So I'm not from the data science world, but I'm guessing that the MCP it gets the data as it is in the database, and then it works with it. And if I'm not correct, the RAG does a bit more pre-processing, and yeah.
Okay, another question. Is it different from creating a REST API on the backend and expose the features as endpoints?
No, I don't think that it is different, but there is a standard for it, and you can quickly build it, and yeah.
Should every bit of functionality have its own MCP server? It feels overkill to refactor extensions or tools into so many servers instead of serving one backend.
Sorry, I didn't get it. Yeah, I mean from the question was regarding the authentication from the database. I mean, it makes sense if you query the MCP with your LLM, that you have a user that only makes sure that the LLM can only query and don't destroy anything in the database.
When you query a database via MCP, do you need a technical user to query, or can you pass user-specific authentication?
Yeah, sorry, this is the question I answered. Yes. Yes, you don't need a user, but you should create a user for your query.
Okay. Is there a possibility to integrate a MCP server into my Fast API or Django API? This would be extremely convenient.
Yeah, I'm probably guessing that you can add a new endpoint in Fast API if the new HTTP streaming is out there.
Okay. Does MCP support servers calling the LLM in reaction to an event rather than only the LLM calling the server?
Sorry, I'm not sure about that. Sorry.
Why did MCP blow up while other protocols did not? For example, OpenAI had plugins using Manifest YAML, which was a flop back then.
I think MCP won because it was just so easy to integrate, and they had the clients, the servers ready, and yeah, I mean you saw how short it is, and you can just plug it in, and it works.
Okay. Thank you, Julian, for this wonderful talk. Please give him a round of applause.